Hello, everyone. How are you? There's always a moment here on YouTube where, when you do a live, your screen goes blank, and then it suddenly lights up. So anyway, lovely to see you all. Friday, the 28th of November, 2025. Bit of a history chat live. Won't be massively long, but I say that every time, don't I? But it won't be massively long. Sorry, just bring the microphone a bit closer to me as well. Tom F. 2327. That's a very generous. Thank you very much. Thank you. That's really kind of you. What a lovely way to start off a live, to have a donation coming in from Tom F. So thank you very much indeed. It's in dollars. So I don't know, Tom, if you're over on that side of the water or you're just in the UK and you've been charged dollars. I mean, the world's a strange place. Merlin 8514. Hi, mate. How you doing? Lovely to see people here. Put who you are and where you're where you're coming from in the chat. I'm a nosy Parker. Love geography nearly as much as history, actually. Strange to say that they were the two subjects I did best at A level, but I do love knowing where people come from. Drives Sarah up the wall because we were driving along and I'll say, oh, do you know, there's a bloke from YouTube lives in that village there, and they'll be like, she says, yeah, how the hell do you know that? Anyway, I have to say it's been a mad, busy few weeks, and hence why I haven't done a live. And I know one or two of you. Hello, Cara. Hello, Vince. Nice to see you. Hey, it's the old crowd, isn't it? Neil Morrison. Nice to see you. Do you guys just live? Do you, Vince and Neil, do you just live on YouTube the whole time? Jen Ingle. Lovely to see you up in Cumbria. Nice to see you. Merlin's down in Cornwall. Perfect name for someone in Cornwall. And Paul Phillips. Good afternoon from a dreary Glasgow. Leslie, greetings from South Carolina. Nice to have someone across the water. Lovely to see you all. I was going to say, just as something to say is, a couple of you got in touch and said, is there a live show? These lives, okay, I try and fit them in. But I'll be honest, I love telling history stories. I love researching and then telling a story. And I'll be honest, I go into quite a lot of depth. I guess you know that. And I try and really script a good story as well. So I'm doing a lot of research, a lot of scripting, and then also I do have the negative of a lot of editing as well, especially when it's like a half-hour video. A half-hour video, probably in raw material, hour and a half's worth of footage, something like that. So that's my priority. So these live shows only happen when I'm sort of ahead of the game, as it were. So apologies for those of you who are get really excited and think Friday Chris is going to be on call. It would be nice if we could do that on a more regular basis, but that's my defense. And obviously I do, as Cara and Neil know, I do a live show on a Monday for my patrons, but that's totally separate to these sort of shows, okay? And they do happen every Monday, but it's Monday night in the UK. Let me just see, God blimey, the chat's going well. Hey, we've got Queensland in Australia with us as well. Sarah Jane, nice to see you. Another regular supporter, thank you very much. Hey, Glassman 1533 from outside DC. Yes, of course. Thanksgiving weekend, isn't it? So happy Thanksgiving belatedly to all our American cousins. Leslie, you're descended from 6 passengers from the Mayflower. That's amazing. One of the things I love about New England is just all the names that come from basically the eastern counties of England, principally sort of Suffolk and Essex as well. My cousins come from Billericay in Essex, and it tickled me pink to find there was a Billericay in New England as well. Definitely not like the Billericay in Essex, that's for sure. David, what's my favourite era in history? That's a great question. I'll tell you what, David, I'll answer, but can we open that up to everyone as well? Okay. Everyone, could you just put in, what is your favourite era in history or favourite period in history? But to answer your question, David, I'm not being like a politician and fobbing you off. My favourite, I do like the Victorian period. I find that fascinating, not just the military stuff and the British Empire. I find what's going on in Britain itself fascinating. Anglo-Saxon England, probably my other one. Yeah, I mean, as a general rule, I'm a bit of a history muppet. Anything British history fascinates me. Quite frankly, if I was anywhere else in the world, the first thing I do is I find out about where I am. So if I was staying in, I don't know, Ballarat in Victoria in Australia, I'll be digging out the local history book to find out what happened in Ballarat. If I was in parts of France, I was down in Antibes a couple of years ago, and I was fascinated just to find out the history of that part of France. And of course, how for a large part of French history, it wasn't part of France at all. Effectively, it was part of Italian principalities. So I do love history. But to answer your question, David, Victorian, I do like Anglo-Saxon, just to be different as well. Okay. Leslie, you like the Wars of the Roses. Watch this space, mate. And the Victorian period. Okay. Welsh guy, first half of the 20th century. Interestingly, I'll talk about that in a moment, but you're not alone in that one. Cold and QA Library, Cold War to Modern War. We've spoken before about that, haven't we? Cold War period is interesting, and again, I'll relate to that because I've been running a series for outside of YouTube, but some of you, be interested to share my learnings from that actually. Ancient Greek, says Merlin. Well, you'll be pleased to know I won't be touching that. Did study ancient Greek at school. My very first history teacher, Mr. Hans, and he believed in teaching history like from the year dot forward. We never got that far forward because year dot takes a long time. So I remember, I remember getting 100%. In his history test. I was the only kid who did, and it was all ancient history. And holy cow, I was about 7, 8 maybe at the time. But and we were doing the Phoenicians, ancient Greeks, the Trojan Wars, the Egyptians. We started on the Romans, and then we got to the end of the school moved on. But yeah, David, if history has a starting point, where would it be? Blinking hell, David. I'm going to open that up to the rest of the mob here, okay? Because I can see we've got 37 people on this on the show at the moment, so that's good. Show that sounds pretentious, doesn't it? Does prehistoric count? Says Sarah Jane. But you like 19th century stories, yeah? 19th century is quite interesting because it feels like it's almost within touching distance, and maybe that's also why I then like Anglo-Saxon, because it isn't within touching distance. It's it's time that's almost Tolkien-like, isn't it? An England that we really can't really understand and appreciate. Oh, and Scotland and Wales for that matter as well, because they were going through traumatic times pre-1066. Welsh guy, to think the Tudors were originally Welsh. Yeah, I tell you what, I went to Anglesey a few years ago. Okay, lovely part of the world. Oh, it's a lovely part of the world if you catch it on a sunny day like I did. And there's a chapel there where, well, actually, there's a house where Owen Tudor, Henry Tudor's grandfather, was born. And there's a chapel where some of the older Tudors back into the Middle Ages are buried, bonkers. And to think they gave up the beautiful island of Anglesey to go down to London and have 6 wives, break with Rome, face the Spanish Armada, etc., etc. And John, you said, what war is the most interesting to you? Well, those of you who know Neil Morrison, you'll know exactly where my answer is going to be on this one. I was brought up in South Africa, or for a bit. I was born in England, born in Somerset. Actually, I'm a cider apple, but my dad got an engineering job out in South Africa. So surprise, surprise, aged about 3.5. I do remember. I might have been 4. I was taken to Rorke's Drift and Isandlwana. And ever since then, the Zulu Wars of 1879 have fascinated me. Although, I'll be honest, the other one that really fascinates me is the British campaigns along the Nile in, well, Egypt and then Sudan in the 1880s and 1890s. Fascinating. And I did have the privilege of working in Sudan probably about 10, 12 years ago. Great place, lovely people. Obviously, absolute gone to a hell in a handcart since, hasn't it? Which is a real shame, because nice place, nice people. And it was quite amazing. I sat in this hotel right next to the River Nile one morning, and you could just about see the presidential palace, which was Charles Gordon's governor's palace, down the bank. And I was sitting there having a coffee, eating some black olives, watching the Nile flow past. It's like, wow, this is cool, isn't it? So I've had some good events in my life, haven't I? But there you go. Leslie, Anglo-Zulu Wars, your favourite? Mick from Morden, I can see that you're on here somewhere because Vince is talking to you. So hello, Mick, down in Morden, sorry. Yeah, The decolonisation wars of the 50s and 60s are interesting, Welsh guy. And what's also interesting within that, I know it's not within the British sphere, I do find it fascinating, not that I'm any expert on it, on the other decolonisation wars as well, like the French in Algeria and Vietnam, the Dutch fighting in the Dutch East Indies, Indonesia nowadays, and of course the Portuguese wars in Angola and Mozambique as well. So yeah, really, interesting, but as I say, not an expert in them at all. Leslie's saying something about Luxor, but I'm not sure if that's me or not. You like the era, Ineris, you like the era of William Marshall. I think you need to speak to Cara. Cara will leap in here at that one. Anyway, folks, so I thought we'd just have a bit of a chit chat and share with you some of the stuff that's going on. And we'll share a couple of dates from British history this week. In fact, I'll tell you what, why don't we just get a couple in there for those of you who are desperate for a bit of British history now. Let's just talk about today in British history, 28th of November. 28th of November, 1290. Going to do this chronologically, okay? 1290, Queen Eleanor, the wife of Edward I of England, died. And her biggest, I suppose, claim to fame, as those of you who are on my patrons call on Monday will know, is that Edward really loved Eleanor. And she died in Leicestershire, in the English Midlands, and her body was taken back for burial at Westminster Abbey in London. Took a while in those medieval days, royal procession with the funeral cortege coming down from the Midlands. And every night, every place where at night the cortege stopped, Edward ordered a special monument, a cross to Eleanor, to be constructed. These are the famous Eleanor crosses, of which only 3 survive now. But the final one was actually at Charing Cross in London, although there is a monument outside Charing Cross station. But unfortunately, that's not the original. That was built by the Victorians. The original was destroyed by Oliver Cromwell and his chaps during the English Civil War. 28th of November, 1885, bit of Victorian. The British in the Third Anglo-Burmese War capture Mandalay. And obviously it ends up probably more famously from Kipling's poem and indeed the song that was written in the early 1900s, The Road to Mandalay. Far more impressive was the battle for Mandalay during the Second World War as well against the Japanese. 28th of November, 1899, still in the Victorian period, and another battle, the Battle of Modder River in South Africa between the British and the Boers in the Anglo-Boer War, or officially the Second Anglo-Boer War. 28th of November, 1919, Nancy Astor became the first female member of parliament to take her seat in the House of Commons in Britain, the first female MP to take her seat. Interestingly, not the first female MP. The first female MP was actually elected the previous year in the 1918 general election. That was Constance Markievicz, who was a Sinn Féin representative, the Irish Nationalist Party. And Sinn Féin have always had a policy, both when they were part of the United Kingdom, when Ireland, the whole of Ireland was part of the United Kingdom, as it was in 1918, 1919, and subsequently in the Northern Ireland, where if they win a seat, they will not take their seat at Westminster. Okay, so they win the seat, but they just won't actually go to Westminster to be represented in the London government. And Constance Markievicz therefore didn't take her seat in 1918 when she was elected. And it was Nancy Astor who won a by-election for a seat in Plymouth, who became the first member of parliament to take her seat in 1919. And speaking of politics, the last one for today in British history, much more recent, 28th of November, 1990, John Major became Prime Minister, succeeds Margaret Thatcher in the leadership election inside the Conservative Party after Thatcher was forced to step down in 1990. So there we go. A few little snippets of history for you there. Let's have a quick look. Colin, thank you very much for sharing that. And someone else is asking, can I create a series on the Anglo-Maratha War? Well, there's several Anglo-Maratha wars, and yes, they will be coming. As much as I said I like the Victorian period, I do want to in 2026 go back a little bit, not too far. I learnt my lesson doing some of the Viking stuff. That doesn't necessarily go down well on the History Chap channel on YouTube. At any rate, funny enough, does quite well in the podcast channel. There you go. Different audience, obviously. Vince. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much on that one about Sinn Féin. They won't take the oath, but they're happy to take the money. Interesting observation. Yeah. Siggy783. Are there any books I recommend for an introduction to 19th century British history? Blimey. Yeah, there are quite a few. It's what angle you want. If you're just looking at British, I mean, if you any of the Simon Sharma stuff is pretty good. If you want a real basic one, actually you can't. If you want a real, top line, Winston Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples is not a bad place to start, but you probably want to dig in a bit more than that afterwards. But Simon Sharma, I'll be honest, the Jeremy Paxman one was quite good as well. But Simon Sharma I'd probably go with as a good introduction to British history, and reasonably down the middle as well. It doesn't have a particular axe to grind. Speaking of which, has anyone been seeing this recent BBC programme about the British Empire? I haven't. So I haven't got a dog in the fight, as my American friends would say. But yeah, I'm guessing it might be telling a particular slant on the British Empire. Just guessing at who's presenting it. But there we go. Cara, absolutely. A hobby that's turned into a midlife crisis. Isn't it fantastic? Those of you patrons that will know that, I used to run a management training business, principally around presentation skills, public speaking. I used to do speeches as well for chief execs and people for their conferences. And strangely enough, when COVID came along, that business went south, didn't it? No one wanted speeches. No one was delivering speeches. No one needed public speaking training. And I was twiddling my thumbs. And one of my mates said, why don't you just tell some history stories like you do down at the pub? And he followed up with, and bore everyone else like you do us. Backhanded comment. Thank you very much, Peter Barry. I noticed the Empire series was very short on just the episodes. Is it? Am I right? Were there only 4 episodes on it? There's a great series actually. I'm listening to it actually on Spotify, but on audio. Scepter Isle. That's really good about the British Empire. That was a BBC series as well. I'm guessing coming from a slightly different angle. And that's fascinating. I really recommend Scepter Isle if you're interested in the British Empire. And that really takes it from the first colony, as they said, Ireland, all the way through. In fact, I'm labouring away. I'm on Australia and New Zealand, the early settlements of those two at the minute. Really interesting. Welsh guy, you've mentioned the Brecon Military Museum of the Royal Welsh Regiment. Yes, thoroughly recommend going there. Lovely town as well, Brecon. Great cathedral where we've got the colours that were actually retrieved after the Battle of Isandlwana are laid up in Brecon Cathedral. Well, laid up, they're actually up in the ceiling in Brecon Cathedral. But a really good museum, and knowledgeable staff who, if you ask good questions, they're like you just wound them up and off they go. They'll give you loads of stuff. Speaking of which, I've got something about the Zulu Wars to tell you about in a minute. Yeah, thanks, Merlin. I tend to agree with you a little bit on that one. Thank you. Oh, okay. I noticed about the moving of the capital of India to Delhi. I'm guessing it was the capital was Calcutta originally, wasn't it? Or in the British Raj, it was Calcutta. Obviously, it was Delhi when the Mughal Empire was kicking around. But yeah. Oh, Ian Lamont. Now, that is a good one. The British monitoring force in Zimbabwe during the handover. British bobbies in the bush in uniform. Do you know, I'm gonna make a note of that one. Those of you who come on regularly know that I have a little book and I put various ideas in. Unfortunately, far too many ideas compared to how many hours I've got in the day. But I'll call it Zimbabwe monitoring. I seem to remember there was a soldier who was decorated as well, young officer during the handover. I seem to think he went into some of the I can't remember if it was Zapu or ZANU PF fighters were slightly apprehensive about surrendering their arms and coming in from the bush. And he went out sort of single-handedly and talked, into their camp, and heavily armed, and he sort of put his rifle down and what have you, and talked them into coming in. And he was, I'm not so sure he wasn't awarded the George Cross, but I stand to be corrected. That's way back in my memory. God, I've got some crap in there, haven't I? Do I watch rugby, says John? Yes, I do, mate. I am, in fact, I'm a season ticket holder at Worcester Warriors, just up the road. And I mean, just up the road from me. I could walk there in about 15, 20 minutes. They're back in the Championship. They went into financial problems a few years ago, but they're back. So yes, I do watch rugby. I like watching it live rather than on telly, if I'm honest. But yeah, things like the Six Nations always got to be watched, haven't they? There's something about rugby that I like ahead of football. Used to really, when I was younger, I used to really go to a lot of football matches. Spurs fan for my sins. I have to say, yeah, I don't know. I went to a match a couple of years ago, highly expensive. Yeah, I don't know. Just wasn't the same. And the atmosphere is not the same either compared to a rugby match. My preference, not everyone's. Paul Phillips, great that Worcester are back. Yeah, we have crowds at the minute of over 10,000, which in the Championship is unbelievable. Haven't been to an away match yet, but I've got my eyes on going down to Cornish Pirates in Penzance. That'd be a good match, wouldn't it, eh? Leslie, of course, I forgot you've got a Trent College connection in down over in Nottingham. Hey, folks, let me just tell you a couple of other things that have been going on. The last week's video about the purchase system, really, that's gone down an absolute storm. I think we're on 128,000 views. Well, so thank you very much for all of you who've watched it, all of you who've made comments and given me likes, all that stuff. Genuinely, the YouTube algorithm likes all of that, and indeed how long people spend on a video as well. So seeing a few other things. Hello to Canada, Joshua. Nice to see you in Canada. Yeah, always good to my Canadians. Something nice about Canadians. Don't know what it is. Just nice people. Anyway, so the purchase system went down really well, and I've got something special for you coming out later today. 3 o'clock. Okay. Was it 3 o'clock? 3:30, one or the other. Can't remember. Let's just have a quick butcher's here. Might not be able to get it. 3:30. We've got the Lawrence of Arabia. Loads of you have requested it. So Lawrence of Arabia coming out later this afternoon. The truth behind the legend. And I have to say, there are so many sub-stories in the Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence story. It was really hard not to go off down loads of rabbit holes. Cara, I know you'll think that's hilarious. I stopped myself. Well, not entirely, but I stopped myself. But there are so many fascinating people. And one of them, who I don't talk about in the video, actually, Gertrude Bell. Gertrude Bell, she was, some people call her the female Lawrence, but actually she knew more about Arabs and the Arab language and Arab culture than Lawrence did. And many people actually say that rather than Gertrude Bell being the female Lawrence, Lawrence was the male Gertrude Bell. That's a good way of looking at it, isn't it? Have I read Lawrence in Arabia by Scott Anderson? I have indeed. Good book, really good book. You watched the Lawrence video this morning. Oh, thank you. Paul, sorry, I got the wrong end of the stick. I thought you meant you'd watched the film. I was going to say, wow, you've got a long morning. Oh, thank you very much. You enjoyed it. Members, you had early access to Lawrence, so you can watch it now. Actually, you don't have to wait till later on. I try and get my videos. I try and give early access to the people who sign up to be members. Down below, you can see there's an icon which says member. I'm going to look at my membership next year as well and how we can enhance that. And likewise for my patrons, going to be looking at how we enhance that as well. Because I do like the sense of community that we have between all my different History Chat viewers and supporters. So I'm going to see how we do that even better next year. What was I going to say? So, just while I'm on that, a big thanks to those of you who are members. Going to call out a couple of people. God only knows if you're on the call. I know one of you is because I've got your names here. The Eclectic Beard, thank you very much for supporting me. Anthony Valesco, Greg Stewart, 9754. Sounds like a sort of military number, that. Greg Hall, Leslie, thank you very much for your support. I know you're here from South Carolina. Ed Hoddap and Trey Gillespie, just a few people who've joined up recently. So thank you very much for your support there. And as I say, been really busy. Lawrence of Arabia, taken been really hard to do that one, actually. Don't know what you think, Philip. You said you enjoyed it, so thank you very much indeed. But yeah, it's trying to find that storyline over and above the normal. Yeah, I've heard about Lawrence of Arabia sort of thing. I try to always find a different angle, which sort of hopefully adds value to a lot of you guys, but probably from a YouTube perspective, it doesn't necessarily attract an 18-year-old who wants to learn about Lawrence of Arabia and wants the noddy version, the top line version that you guys have all had in the past and are now waiting to like dig beneath the surface. It's like this one, as I say, Lawrence of Arabia, the truth behind the legend. There'll be a lot of people that say, no, just give me the legend. I'll start with the legend, then I can worry about the truth afterwards. But so because I do that, it's taken, actually, it took forever, if I'm honest, the Lawrence of Arabia one. But there you go. I mentioned a couple of you were talking earlier about different parts of British history, and I said I was going to come to it, so I might as well talk about it now. This year, I've actually been delivering a weekly talk for an organisation called Restless. Restless are like a learning platform for retired folk, over 55s, I think is how they describe themselves. Worldwide, it's online, and they have loads of stuff. You can learn foreign languages, you can have art classes, cooking classes, stargazing, belly dancing, they got that. And they also do history talks. I'm not the only history speaker, but I know I'm probably one of the most popular. In fact, they had a meeting with them today, and they shared some of the stats, which, I get a lot of people. Hundreds of people watching my weekly talk, which is lovely, isn't it? But for the last year, I've been doing a weekly talk about British history, but taking it in chronological order. It's called The Story of Britain, from the Ice Age to the Internet Age. And we've been going through, as I say, chronologically. It's been fascinating listening to the stories, fascinating researching, something I'd love to do more on YouTube, but I appreciate that is a real departure from military history. Oh, trust me, battles feature in this, but it's not all about the battles. And I'd love to do that. And I'm toying with maybe taking that series to my patrons, maybe creating a second YouTube channel that looks more at British history in the whole rather than military history sort of from 1700 onwards. Which is where I think the History Chap really sits. Although these chats, we tend to go all over the show as well, don't we? But that was really interesting. And now, the good news is they want me back for more next year. So I'm going to be doing a series of talks to them next year, which is always nice. And funny enough, this morning I got a phone call from a history club or a speaking club up in Hales Owen, actually the Smethwick. But they meet at Hales Owen Golf Club, just up the M5 from me. They want a speaker next September. Talk about booking in advance. Interestingly, what else have I got coming up? I've been busy preparing my annual history quiz, my Christmas history quiz, which all the people who signed up to my newsletter get invited to that. So if you fancy a bit of a history quiz, it'll be coming up in a few weeks' time in December, pre-Christmas. It'll be a Monday evening, UK. But if you fancy joining that, then down below in the description, you'll see there's a bit which says ways to support my channel. Go to number 4, and it says join my newsletter. Join the newsletter, and you'll get all the details of that. Okay, no cost. But if you fancy a bit of fun, Cara on here. She's a dark horse. She tends to score very well, does Cara. So I've now named and shamed you, Cara. So you're in trouble. Some of the guys here might want to come across and just see how good you are. But if you do, then it's not meant. There's no prizes. There's no wooden spoons. There's no naming and shaming. We do a bit like a Dutch auction. If the maximum score is 30, it's like who's got over 25. All right. If no one's got over 25, do we have a 24? Do we have a 23? And we don't. And when we got about the top 3 candidates, then we stop and say, there you are, there's winner, second and third. Some really easy questions and some really hard questions. Keep people like Cara on their toes, and some of you folk if you come along as well. Okay. And what else have we got? I'm going to just talk about a couple of publications in a minute, but let me just very quickly get back into the chat, which has gone all over the show. Joshua, I can't wait. Joshua, you said, are there topics that I want to make videos on, but I'm unsure of the level of interest? Yes, is the answer. All the blinking time. I've just sort of described the fact that I love, we talked earlier as well, I love Anglo-Saxon history. Whether that would land properly in my current viewer base on YouTube, I doubt, if I'm really honest. I think there'll be a core group of people who would love it. So that's my thinking about, do I need to set up a different channel? Problem is, it's duplication of work. I've only got X amount of hours in a week or in a day to work on, well, history, full stop. But yes, and the other thing that sometimes I look at it, that I do sometimes look at stories. Loads of you send in ideas, and you think, yeah, I love that idea, but I'm not sure it's going to work. I guess some of the lesser known people and lesser known actions are things that I don't know whether they'll land very well. And I don't want to lament. This is just a fact of life. If you ask me to do a story about your granddad in the Second World War, okay, I would probably put in as much effort to research what your granddad was about, his life before he joined up, who he was serving with, the battles he was in, then give a slightly broader picture. He was at Monte Cassino. Let me tell you about Monte Cassino, and off we go and tell you a bit about that. Meanwhile, back to your granddad. All of that, I probably put in exactly the same amount of time as I would telling the story of Lawrence of Arabia. And I guess I've got to have quite frankly, a bit of a payback financially from YouTube. Payback as well, just, number of views. I don't like making videos that only get 10,000 views. The one about the Crown Jewels heist, the theft by Colonel Blood about a month ago, mainly on the back of the theft at the Louvre. It was never what it was just an add-on. But, that's got sort of 10,000 views. The purchase system last week, 128,000 in a week. So less than a week, actually. So, there's something nice. It's a bit like being a band or an author, isn't it? You can sell a few copies or you can have a bestseller. Which one would you sign up for? Wowza, we've got loads going on here. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't see everyone's conversations. Cara, I'm in demand, Chris. Not bad for a COVID hobby. No, it's not actually. Living the dream. If I'm really honest, my dad, I think, he'd be so proud because he saw me go to university. I was the first member of our family to go to university. I know I sound posh, but the family, well, my dad came from Walthamstow. His, most of the family came from St George in the East and that area of East London. But so I was the first one out of my cousins and out of uncles, aunts, everyone to go to university. Studied history, medieval and modern history at the University of Birmingham. Great university. Ironically, my daughter ended up there studying accountancy. Can you believe? But he would have been so proud to have seen how I was making a living, and I am making a living now from telling stories from history, sharing British history, British military history, which was really his passion. I don't think he would be able to get his head around what the hell YouTube was all about or how you make money online. I think he would have believed that the only way you make money as a historian, you write books or you become a history teacher in school, and you can sort of predict how much you're going to get paid in school, can't you? So I think he'd be very proud and totally bemused and whatever. But anyway, he's not with us anymore, so I suppose he might be looking at it, still scratching his head. But there we go. His dad, James, Walthamstow, top greyhound racing there. Yeah, there was in the day. I'm not sure it's still there, is it? Or is it still there? It's greyhound racing really is very much in decline, isn't it? Okay, Cara, thank you very much. Harry, nice to see you. Yeah, there's something, it's funny, isn't it? And I know the world's changed a lot, but there was this moment where you were breaking out and going to university. I'll be honest, I look back now at my time at university, and I wish I was now. I'm not 18 in one respect. I had a brilliant time at uni, really did. I studied history, which was cool because that's what I love. But I partied, got heavily involved in student politics, ended up as the vice president of the student union, the Guild of Students at Birmingham Uni, had to run an election campaign, all that stuff. I met people from different countries, Nepal and places like that, Cyprus, I'd never met. I met people from different backgrounds. I met, guys from Cameroon, I met people from Algeria. I had Jewish friends, all the things that, quite frankly, I got a first-class degree in living life. Unfortunately, I got a 2-2 in history because I was living life. I think now if I went back, I would probably flick it the other way round. And I didn't realise just how fortunate I was to have some of the lecturers that I had at the University of Birmingham at the time. There was Eric Ives, who at the time was considered probably one of the greatest experts on both Anne Boleyn and Lady Jane Grey in Britain. We had John Bourne, who was heavily involved in the Western Front Association. I had Carl Chin, who has ended up being the historical advisor to Peaky Blinders. And you don't realise that you had all these fantastic lecturers, but of course they're all old farts. I mean, looking back on it, Carl Chin and John Bourne were dance like younger than I am now. But when you're 18, anyone over about 25 looks ancient, don't they? And yeah, in many respects, I wish I'd put my back into the degree when I had those opportunities there. Don't have many regrets in life, and I'm not lamenting it, but I just look back and think, yeah, it would have been. I was capable of getting a first. I'm absolutely sure of that. Had I actually bothered to put my back into it and not be poncing around student union and going to clubs in Birmingham, basically, and going to Akafest and other such places, which were great, and great music, great West Indian food. Didn't really help with the history degree, though, did they? So there you go. Harry Schreiber, do the English celebrate Thanksgiving? No, we don't, Harry. We're all totally bemused this side of the water, and of course totally bemused when Black Friday started to make an appearance in Britain, because of course there was no context to Black Friday whatsoever. Black Friday, you guys, it's the build up towards Thanksgiving, and then obviously Black Friday itself straight after Thanksgiving. We don't have a Thanksgiving; we just get Black Friday. Which I don't know about all my other British viewers here, but it's been going on for blinking ages, hasn't it? Black Friday. Build up, the pre-Black Friday sale nearly coming, but here's a special offer, and now we're being hit with them today, Black Friday in the UK. Speaking of purchasing, let me just share with you a couple of things. I just want to share with you a couple of publications that I subscribe to. They both landed this week through the letterbox. And I really recommend Military History. Military History Matters. I don't know if you remember, a great magazine, actually. What have we got in there this week? As an example, under the we've got Cover Story, the new series marking the 250th anniversary of the American War of Independence. We have a whole piece on the armistice, the Balkan breakdown, what was happening in the First World War in the Balkans, and of course, right here, interview with Ian Knight. Do you remember, some of you? Ian actually won the competition for best book, military history book, with Military History Matters, their poll, and he outdid people like Anthony Beaver and people like that. Ian Knight with his book Warriors in Scarlet. Interestingly, actually, Ian has just finished, as in this morning, a tour of the Zulu War battlefields. I've got to say, it's on my bucket list, and it's organised actually, bizarrely, with that mob there. The Cultural Experience. Don't know if you've come across them. They're not the cheapest, I hasten to add. But if you're after a bucket list sort of thing, here we've got the Boer War. That's Ian Knight's leading that one, actually. The Gallipoli campaign, Fortress Malta, Salonika, the Salonika front in the First World War, Vietnam War, over in Vietnam, interesting. Arnhem, Operation Market Garden, and the rise and fall of Nazi Germany. Just some of the tours they do. By the way, I'm not on a retainer or anything, but if you're interested in military magazines, really recommend that one. And in the description, I'll actually put a link to that one. And the other one I got for the 19th century buffs. Okay, Soldiers of the Queen, hurrah! This is the magazine of the Victorian Military Society. And again, I'll put a link down below. So the Victorian Military Society, the magazine's really good. This is quite a thin one, actually. But and they have a fantastic annual conference, which this year was at the National Army Museum. And talking principally, had 3 speakers all talking about the Crimean War. Last year, it was down at Winchester at the Gurkha Museum, Gurkha Regiment Museum. So if you're interested in either of those, obviously just one commercial publication, one association, the Victorian Military Society, as I say, based in Britain, and you get a quarterly Soldiers of the Queen magazine. Really good. Treat yourself, because I bet you're spending loads of money anyway. No Good Friday offers on either of those two. It's the standard price, but they're not expensive. Well worth it if ever you're interested. So where are we at? Okay, so we're at 1:40, and I said this wasn't going to be a long one today. So let me, having talked about those, let me just give you a quick run through of other events that happened in British history this week, just so that it's not just me twittering on. All right. So cherry picking. Leslie and some, not Leslie, sorry, Neil, some of the others, Cara. When you were on the patrons thing, we went into a lot more detail. But 23rd of November, 1852, the very first pillar box was opened by the post office. So the very first, that lovely British icon, isn't it? Up there with telephone boxes that really we don't have anymore, do we? But the pillar box, interestingly, they were painted green initially, and then they got painted red. So funny how, what we think is tradition isn't tradition when it started. What else have we got? We have 24th of November, 1847. Wuthering Heights was published by Emily Bronte. And same day, 24th of November, 1859, Darwin's Origin of the Species was published as well. Controversial book at the time. Some places still controversial now, I guess. 25th of November, 1120, the White Ship sank in the English Channel. The White Ship was carrying the son and heir of Henry I of England, who indeed was the son of William the Conqueror. So this is the grandson of William the Conqueror, drowns, William Atheling as he was called, or Adeline, drowns in the English Channel. There's been a couple of books on it. I think Princess Diana's brother wrote a book on it, didn't he, a little while ago. Then we have 25th of November, 1542, the Battle of Solway Moss. English defeat the Scots. Another one of those battles up on the borders there. There are so many battles in England actually fought on British soil that we tend to sort of wash over them, don't we? It's bad enough with things like the Wars of the Roses. Most people don't actually understand what the Wars of the Roses were all about or have any timeline as to what was going on. Be interesting to do a Wars of the Roses. Be interesting to do a Wars of the Roses talk here on YouTube, wouldn't it? Series taking each of the battles or several of the battles together, but that'd be interesting. Don't know what you think. Give me a bit of a straw poll. Bit of medieval history, folks, or not? Do we just stick with the British redcoats and khaki fatigues? 25th of November, 1899, the Battle of Graspan in the Boer War. And 25th of November, 1932, John Williams, also known as John Fielding, Victoria Cross recipient from the Battle of Rorke's Drift in 1879, died in South Wales. He was actually in, where was he? Cwmbran. He died in Cwmbran. And there's a pub, the John Fielding pub in Cwmbran as well. So there we go. 26th of November, 1703, the Great Storm kills over 10,000 people in Britain. When actually southern England and South Wales swept across, came in from the English Channel, and 10,000 people killed. Some on land, but mainly at sea. Fascinating one. Have a look. If you put the Great Storm 1703 in YouTube, my video will pop up. The History Chap video. Definitely not military history, but obviously a link because Royal Navy ships were going down. And fascinating. I mean, there's one, the winds were so strong that one boat, a merchant ship actually, was pulled out of the River Helford in Cornwall, near Helston, okay, and was pulled from its moorings by the strength of the wind, and it was driven along and was beached on the Isle of Wight. And on board was one shipmate and two young lads. I mean, that must have been a terrifying experience. Another ship went down near Brighton, sank, and they rescued a man still clinging to what remained of it, of the mast. They picked him up round past Dover. He'd been swept all the way round through the Straits of Dover, coming into the Thames estuary from Brighton. So fascinating story. Eyewitness accounts were actually taken by Daniel Defoe, who went on, of course, to write Robinson Crusoe, didn't he? So another Rorke's Drift person died this week, actually, 26th of November, 1918. Chaplain George Smith, known as Ammunition Smith, the chaplain who was actually at Rorke's Drift. Doesn't appear in the film. Those of you who are fans of Zulu will remember that Jack Hawkins plays sort of this, he plays Otto Witt, the Swedish missionary, very un-Swedish in a very lovely English accent, Jack Hawkins. But Otto Witt wasn't at the battle. and indeed in the film he wasn't at the battle. He goes off in his buggy with his daughter. All a load of nonsense in the film, but in reality, British Army chaplain was there. Ammunition Smith, black, long, flowing black cloak, vicar's garb from the 19th century, a big, long red beard. And he actually went around handing out ammunition. He was a big, strong bloke. He actually carried boxes of the ammunition, a bit like Sergeant Windrush in the film. And he went around handing out ammunition, but telling the men not to swear while they were, swearing at the Zulus, swearing because their gun was hot. And supposedly famously saying, don't swear, boys, but shoot them, because shoot them. So interesting one. Ammunition Smith dies on the 26th of November 1918. Ammunition Smith, by the way, was the chaplain who buried with Christian burial rites Coghill and Melville when their bodies were found, the men who tried to save the colours from Isandlwana and were killed on the banks of the Buffalo River. Tying in with another YouTube video, 26th of November 1975, the premiere of The Man Who Would Be King. Did a story about that back, earlier this year, didn't I? The real story, or the stories that inspired Rudyard Kipling to write The Man Who Would Be King. 27th of November 1940, the Battle of Cape Spartivento between the Royal Navy and the Italian Navy in the Second World War. We've talked about today's events, so the 29th of November, tomorrow, 29th of November 1936, the Crystal Palace burned down. This is the Crystal Palace that had been that was opened and used during the Great Exhibition in the 1850s. Very much the project of Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband, but it was then removed, literally pane of glass by pane of glass, and put in Sydenham, down in Sydenham in South London, where it became a venue for events and some exhibitions, but burnt down in 1936, 50 years after, 80 years after it had actually been in use in Hyde Park in London. And finally, 29th of November 1967, the British finally evacuated Aden. And of course, I did a video about Aden and the Battle of Crater, old Mad Mitch in there. So those are some of the events that happened this week in British history. So let me have a quick look. I can see someone's just said Harry Shriver, Ammunition Smith, deserves a book in his own right. Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they didn't have him in the film, because to have actually had a Otto Witt, Swedish missionary, well, with a very English accent, as I say, and Ammunition Smith probably would have given it the wrong sort of balance. But he definitely came from that sort of Victorian masculine Christianity, I think, Ammunition Smith. But fascinating bloke. Ends up being a British Army chaplain. What's the barracks up at Preston? Is it Fulwood Barracks at Preston in my army friends? That's where he ends up. That was his last posting before he died. Leslie, you're mentioning Pearl Harbor, but I can't. I'm racing back up the thing. Kieran, your father saw the Crystal Palace burn down as a boy of 9. I think it was quite a spectacle. There were loads of fire engines went to try and save it. It's like 70 fire engines, but there was a wind coming from the southwest, whipped up, and the flames just took hold. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Absolutely. So there we go. Have I covered the English Civil War? Says, Stephen Davis. No, I haven't. I did cover the ghosts from Edge Hill. So I talked about Edge Hill briefly a few weeks ago when for Halloween I did a Britain's Most Haunted Battlefield, which supposedly is Edge Hill. Although I'm sure, depending on which battlefield you might have had some ghostly experiences in, folks, you might argue otherwise. Personally, I've always thought Culloden's a very lonely, eerie place. A little bit like Isandlwana, for that matter. But the answer to your English Civil War, no, I haven't. And I guess that's part of that. When I was saying about going back in time, how far can the History Chap go back before it starts to feel like it's just another history channel? Doesn't mean I don't do something maybe in a members like a members private video or private series. Could be something we do. Don't know. Our nearest says I'd love more medieval history. Thank you very much. Hey, Paul Phillip, you like the earlier stuff as well. Yeah, I mean, I do. And maybe the Vikings was just a bit over the thing, but I mean, some of my members will know that there is a members only video about the Battle of Ashdown. But actually, it's not just the Battle of Ashdown, is it? Because this is the Alfred the Great. Well, actually, before he's Alfred the Great, when he's just still Prince Alfred with his brother. And they take on the Vikings at Ashdown. But prior to that, all in the same video, we have the defeat at Reading by the English, or the Army of Wessex are defeated at Reading. They then win then we have the Battle of Basing, and we have the Battle of Ashdown, all tied up in one series. It's a fascinating period of history. Moment of jeopardy, really, for England. I guess if the Great Heathen Army had won and defeated the House of Wessex, well, would there be in England? Well, there'd be an Ireland, wouldn't they? And the majority of people in the island would probably be descended from the people who were around at that time. But it would be a very different place, wouldn't it? And the history of the world would have been very different as well. Oh, Lord, hang on. Loads of good stuff there going on between Harry and Cara. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, Harry Shriver, how about next year doing the Haunted Tower of London for Halloween? Could be a cool one. Yeah, I'm never quite sure with that sort of thing whether you guys are into things like April Fool's Day, Halloween, or not. I've got a good April Fool's Day story, which didn't do this year, mainly because I ran out of time. But I'm tempted to do it for next year. And it's not actually a battle, but it definitely relates to both the First and the Second World War. So leave that one in suspense. Hey, it's a great story. And my Scouts friends might know what it could be. So Richard Francis Burton. So Richard Francis Burton is a vote there for a potential story. Do you know, I'd like to do a few more about explorers. I think that would be really cool. Possibly also some of the inventors that we've had as well. I talked about the inventors in my series with Restless. And you realise just the amount of things that come out of Britain, this small little island off the coast of Europe, has through history been quite phenomenal. And it's very easy to knock Britain. But actually, there must be something in the water that produces so many inventors, so many people who are willing to go travelling, so many Bolshevik people who enjoy having a fight, quite frankly. And like it or love it, everyone, you see it on my channel on YouTube. It's all about, the British Empire was a bag of this and a bag of that. And quite frankly, it's narratives. If my family had been, butchered by the British during the Indian Mutiny because they were just angry at what had happened in Cawnpore, maybe I wouldn't be a massive fan of the British Empire either, for that matter. But equally, the man who wrote that was probably writing that whilst wearing an Arsenal football shirt or something like that. And he was talking in English. And he was on the World Wide Web. Thank you, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, Englishman, Britain, for inventing the World Wide Web and giving it free of charge to the world. So, it's sometimes you forget that, it depends which way angle you look at stuff. But there we go. James Beeching, throwing your two penneth in there. If we do inventors, Brunel is definitely in there. I've just got to manage it. I'll be absolutely honest, just got to manage it, because a lot of folk who follow the History Chap love the battles and that sort of stuff. And immediately I start veering away and doing Brunel. As one of my American friends over in California says, we paraphrasing Len, he says, it's like, tell me about Brunel. How big was his sword? And it's like, no, it's not. We're not going down there. So anyway, folks, little way to go. I've got a bit more to crack on with. I've got a list as long as my blinking arm here of jobs I'm supposed to be doing, because I'm supposed to be I'm doing research for an upcoming video. Duke of Marlborough. Don't know if that appeals to folk. Duke of Marlborough. So not just the Battle of Blenheim, but Duke of Marlborough, his life and times. Probably Arguably one of the greatest British military commanders there was, or has been, certainly the greatest one prior to Wellington. I think we've had a few good ones since. One or two people might say Montgomery. I think General Field Marshal Lord Slim has got to be in there, hasn't he, from the Far East in the Second World War. But yeah, so thank you very much. Mark is fascinating, says Vince. I'm not quite sure which bit we're talking about there, Vince. Nothing against you, but the problem is we whiz through. Okay, thank you very much. That's cool. Duke of Marlborough sounds great, says Sarah Jane. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to him. I mean, the bit I love about the Duke of Marlborough is that having put down the Monmouth Rebellion, we all think about him as Battle of Blenheim, don't we? But of course, he was there, serving James II. It wasn't at Sedgemoor, but serving James II. And of course, he is sent down with the army to stop William of Orange advancing up from Brixham in Devon. His march 3 years later, after Monmouth had failed in his rebellion, now we get the son-in-law has rocked up at the head of a rebellion as well, and Churchill's sent down there with the army, and he changes sides. So I wonder, is that a Churchill trait that you just flip-flop and change from Conservative to Liberal, back to Conservative again? I don't know, it's but it's interesting that a fascinating character. And of course, at the Battle of Blenheim, he was leading a multinational army effectively. So interesting times. Anyway, so Duke of Marlborough, I've got to crack on with him. I've also got, what else have I got coming up? I've got a couple of ideas. Several of you have come to me and said, can I do an expose or the real history behind Harry Flashman? Whoa, George MacDonald Fraser does a brilliant job with Flashman, but some of the stories that Flashman relates to, obviously I've talked about some of them in the past, haven't I? I've mentioned Abyssinia, the Abyssinian expedition, obviously the Anglo-Sikh Wars, we have the Charge of the Light Brigade, but some others, isn't there? Like the whole setup in Madagascar in the 19th century, that was bonkers. And yeah, so maybe some of those would be quite good to do. And of course, the very first Flashman book, again, civil troubles inside Britain, British Army being used to actually put down effectively or to prevent working class rebellions. And lots of you have asked about working class rebellions like Peterloo, the Peterloo massacre. But otherwise, what have I got? Duke of Marlborough. Also coming up this side of Christmas, the Battle of Hong Kong, 1941. Slightly different from the Duke of Marlborough to the Battle of Hong Kong. But I thought just, that fascinates me. My sister lives in Hong Kong. So it's always fascinated me, the Battle of Hong Kong. Actually, it's fascinated me far more than Singapore, in fairness. Even though, quite frankly, Hong Kong was never going to hold out. It was on a hiding to nothing. Just look at where it was geographically. But and I think that in itself says something about the men who fought so tenaciously to try and hold Hong Kong and hold out in Hong Kong in 1941, when the Japanese invaded right after Pearl Harbor had been bombed. They crossed the border. They were already on the border. They were in mainland China. They just hadn't declared war on Britain at that stage. But immediately Pearl Harbor was bombed. Across the border, they came into Hong Kong. Vicious little battle there with quite a lot of civilian atrocities as well, committed by the Japanese. Nice to know it wasn't the British this time. Hooray! So there we go. You'd love me to do an interview or chat with Bernard Cornwell. Yeah, that would be a good one. I'm not sure Bernard Cornwell would really, think it's worth chatting to me. But I tell you who has offered to chat, actually, is Ian Knight, author of countless Zulu war books and also author of Military History Magazine's award-winning book of the year, Warriors in Scarlet. So maybe Ian would be a good person to have here. I've also got someone else up my sleeve from English Heritage that I wouldn't mind interviewing, not so much from his English Heritage perspective, but a real expert on the British Army in the 18th century, especially around the time of the American War of Independence. And I think we could have a little bit about the American War of Independence next year, but not for Christmas. Okay, so lots to crack on with for me. And don't forget, if you're interested in participating in the history quiz, then just pop down at the bottom in the description and sign up for my newsletter. I say free every week. I send out a newsletter which basically tells you what the hell I've been up to, shares some of those dates in British history with you, and indeed has links to my latest YouTube and indeed podcast stories as well. So there you go. Have a great weekend, everyone. Don't forget, Lawrence of Arabia coming out. I'm just going to double check that time here because for the life of me, I can't remember if I actually scheduled it for for 3 o'clock or 3:30. In the back of my head, it's saying 3:30. 3:30 it is today, folks. Okay. So 3:30 today, we have Lawrence of Arabia, the truth behind the legend. And it's a good half-hour video. So you can grab a cup of tea, grab a glass of wine, whatever you want on a Friday, and tuck into it. And if you do, can you just make sure you give us a like, or indeed pass a comment, because as I say, the algorithm picks that up, which is always quite handy, isn't it? So there you go, folks. Hope you have a great weekend. Thanks for all your support as ever, especially to my members. Thank you for all your generous support. And indeed, of course, naturally, my patrons, because you put even more money into the pot. So thank you very much indeed. Have a great weekend. I'll try and see if I can do something next weekend. Oh, by the way, members and indeed others of you, thanks for your feedback in the surveys. If I said, I'm going to think about doing a regular release date, okay, or release day. And the winner by quite some way is Thursdays. So it looks like we've, even though I've got one coming up this afternoon, okay, that was a bit too late in the day. The survey was only running yesterday. But I'm going to look to do a regular slot. Every Thursday, we're going to release a video. Then on these live shows, we might be able to talk about the video. How about that, hey? And if I have a fair wind behind me and I have a second, I get a second video out for somewhere, or like a 10-minuter, then we'll slot it in during the week. Maybe actually dropping it in on a Friday afternoon. That sounds like, if that sounds a good idea, then say yes. But in the meantime, just thanks for all your support, and thank you to members for your input today about the thumbnail for the Lawrence of Arabia video as well. Have a great weekend. Thanks for your support, and until next time, keep well.